Trailblazers has been out for a while and in beta access, and having had a chance to experience it for a while in addition to experiencing the first patch right now, I think it's a good time to provide front development some feedback about the experience overall in some specific areas that I think could use improvement. I will start by saying that overall, FDev, you've done good. You've done good. The ability to shape the infrastructure of whole new regions is great. We had some really nice and fun moments with groups building out some of the outposts that we set up. The new asteroid bases and custom placed settlements are great and allow for painting the map in ways that previously were not possible and allow for some pretty unique player-driven experiences, which I think are pretty cool. Even though, as you probably know, I'm not really a hauler at heart, you made me build a hauling cutter. Me, of all people. Go figure. There's also some opportunities for improvement overall, and some are really important. So, Nanette, thank you for this update and for some of the fixes that you just released in its first update. And look, I think I may have been, well, forget the may. I have been harsh about this update initially. And while some of the criticism is warranted, some of it was also colored by my personal active dislike of hauling. And candidly, I took that too far. Part of the community was right to call me out on that. So let me take this also as an opportunity to set the record straight and comment on what is overall a more balanced level. This theater is meant to be feedback on the beta of Trailblazers from someone who has claimed 4 systems, including a highly competitive one, and built one up rather significantly to a total of 10 or 11, depending on how you count, stations. Like all feedback, it is a gift. It's for you to do whatever you want with it. Take it, do something good with it. Take it, throw it in the trash. It is entirely up to you. And do look in the comments section on this video, as I'm sure commanders will add a lot more color and information to what I'll be talking about in here. Incidentally, if anyone wants to go ahead and put all this stuff into FDev issue trackers, by the way, be my guest. Happy to add links in the video description if you do. So let's start by talking about system claiming. The process of claiming systems is, as I'm pretty sure you're aware at this point in time, on a first come, first served basis. And from the Galaxy map, you have the ability to see in purple systems that are already claimed and thus not eligible, systems that are not eligible for a variety of other reasons, which are red cross out, systems that are already claimed and either have a in construction site or a beacon site to basically state in what state they are, and systems that you control, which are in yellow. This is not necessarily the most intuitive view, like it switches to show in green which systems are eligible from a range standpoint when you use a colonization contact. I would show you, but unfortunately I have notoriety right now and I have no way to get rid of it, so I can't. And all the systems around here are from the same faction, so I can't very quickly show you directly in the colonization contact view, which by the way has been suspended, so I wouldn't be able to show you anyway. Now that I think about it, it is what it is. So anyway, first come, first serve is not the most ideal setup, but we can learn to live with it. We had a discussion actually with David Braven himself over X a while back about that model. He called it unavoidable. We talked about it being avoidable, but there being bureaucracy and agreeing that maybe we have too much bureaucracy in our life and seeing how it would play out. I do believe that we can learn to live with first come, first serve. However, we do need to fix the system sniping issue, the immediate spawn and colonize issue of stations, because it has affected a lot of people. What is this? Once you complete a station build, the moment you drop the last cargo, which completes the requirements for any kind of new station to be built, the outpost, quarterly asteroid base, or tier 3 station that you were building immediately appears and is immediately available for additional colonization. If you are a solo commander and you're building out a chain of outposts to reach a station, in many cases around competitive systems, people will be camping your instance and they will see the the station spawn the moment you also see it spawn. As a matter of fact, they will reach it faster than you do because you have to go through the whole brewer screen experience in addition to then undocking and getting your ship off the pad. So someone who is just camping outside waiting for you to make the final delivery will undoubtedly beat you to the new station and make the claim that you are trying to do. There are tens of commanders that report having built chains of, in some cases, 6 or even 7 outposts in a row to reach just one settlement that they were trying to get a hold of, only to be sniped in this way by someone who was just spawn camping the station to come up as they saw the progress of the station being completed and took it from them with basically doing no work whatsoever. And candidly, that is just unfair. We had to work around this as a group in a really radical manner for the one competitive system that we were after. We had one commander on the pad ready to complete the final order, and we had 2 commanders, including myself, in racing ships in 930 meter per second Vipers, already on the move on the opposite side of the colonization station, and we're coordinating in voice the moment to make the final delivery so that one of the 2 of the race ship commanders would be able to get to the station and hit the claim button before others managed to snipe us. And candidly, this is insane. You shouldn't be able to go through this level of insanity after you've done all the work to build up a station as the architect and bring a station online. It is only fair to give the architect of a system either a button to deploy the station at the time of their convenience, or to give them an exclusive right to dock for even just 5 or 10 minutes. Like any kind of small amount where they're the only ones that can dock at the newly created station, or use the colonization contact at that station, because otherwise there's no way that a solo commander will be able to compete with anyone that's just hanging out around them even in a different game mode, even in solo, trying to snipe their system. This is something that needs to be resolved as part of a first come, first served system, and it is an important change for the system to be fair for all. Beyond that, the range that has been introduced has been raised from originally proposed 10 light years to 16 light years. It is, however, still extremely low. And whereas some very dedicated groups like the Anti-Xeno Initiative managed to make it from the bubble all the way to the Pleiades, which is roughly a 200 light year journey in a week, they only managed to do so through a massively concerted effort of dozens of commanders with carriers filled up with CMMs and metals, operating on a chain basis to get there so quickly. The stations, not the system colonization ships are effectively carriers. Carriers jumps 500 light years. Give us at least 1/10 of that range. Give us at least 50 light years. I'm pretty sure you also don't want space to be completely littered with random outposts all over that nobody cares about, and they're just 16 light year stepping stones to get to a particular place. Give us 50 light years at least. That would be a fair volume. That would also, by the way, not excessively constrict the availability of systems at the edge of a bubble, and would avoid the systems all around the bubble being littered by single small outposts that nobody really cares about. There's another issue with system claiming, and that is the so-called claim failed message, which returns with no further error message. That happened to us once. That issue, as it turns out, was with too many carriers being present in the target system. As it turns out, system colonization ships actually need a carrier slot to be able to colonize a system, and if that carrier slot is not available, the claim process for that system will fail. And in some cases, it will also leave the system in a weird state, but I think that was fixed most recently. It'd be good, by the way, for the fail message to return some info from a UI perspective to tell the commander what is wrong, and so that they know what's going on, because it made us scratch our heads for several hours. Like, we couldn't really figure out what was it before we figured out that it might be carriers. And so we asked one of our friends who had a carrier in the system to jump the carrier out, and finally, once they did that, we managed to get the claim. You should also know, and keep this in mind, because like whenever there's a situation like this, there's a particular condition that people will exploit at some point or another. This is a way to blockade a system from claiming overall. Sure, it can only be done by organized groups, but if, for instance, the AXI got together and decided they wanted to blockade a system that nobody should be able to claim, they would park all their carriers or a number of carriers there, and that would prevent anyone from claiming the system until someone manually decided to jump out and make space, for instance, for someone in particular to make the claim at the time they wanted or a convenient time. This goes against the principle of first come, first serve, and it is a condition that you should be aware of, as, again, it changes the dynamic for at least some of the large groups in the game. Moving to carrier slots. No time slots, like almost ever. Do colonization ship use carrier time slots? It's something that we started to think about, because it's hard to explain how unavailable universally time slots have become. Yes, people move carriers around because of resources and loading materials at scale, but colonization ships behave like carriers in how they jump in and jump out from and to the destination system, and we started wondering whether colonization ships actually use carrier slots to move around. And if that is the case, I would highly recommend revising that design decision, because the lack of time slots for carriers is affecting everyone in the game, not just people who are doing colonization, people who are in the black and stuck, people who, like me, were down in the Pleiades, were trying to get back into the bubble yesterday and could not before downtime, even though I had almost an hour because of no time slots. It affects everyone. Not being able to move carriers is a big issue right now. And if colonization ships have anything to do with that, I would highly recommend having a look at that. Even if it requires, magic teleporting ships into a system, even if that is somewhat immersion breaking, it is still a much better option than preventing all carriers from moving just because colonization ships are coming and going. So, something to consider. Either that or find another way to improve the mechanics of carrier movement so that you're able to generate more carrier slots, more carrier time slots, and let people move around better. In addition, carriers have a very slow transfer speed with regards to their resources. Like if you move to the inventory and transfer, now I'm not at carrier, so I can't show you, but this transfer view is extremely slow. It doesn't have the accelerated transfer that progressively gets faster from an interface standpoint. It only transfers at a very slow speed. I would recommend changing this so that it accelerates like the normal market counter accelerates, so that you can actually transfer things from your transfer view in a speedy way without having to take 30 seconds to sort of stock up a cutter because this is so slow. The current workaround, which is to use the market, which again I don't have access to because I have notoriety here, has another issue with carriers in that when you buy commodities from a carrier market, they do not immediately show up in your cargo hold. Your inventory will show empty. You have to go back into the market after executing the trade, and at that point they will show up in the market, or relog. Both will work in terms of making your cargo show up, but that is very inconvenient and clearly a bug. So since carriers will be used more and more for these purposes, this inventory visualization bug associated with carriers is something that needs fixing and would greatly improve the experience for everyone. Moving on to the system architect view and the overall setup, a few things. So let me pull up the biggest system I have here. Probably the biggest issue right now with the architect view is the lack of an undo button or cancel button or abort button or deconstruct button or any way to undo decisions that you have made with regards to construction sites. we'll get into a moment, like for example, this asteroid base, which I placed, I wanted to get rid of it. I can't. It is a permanent decision, which at this point is going to either stay uncompleted forever or at some point I'm going to decide to complete. And even though it is not what I wanted to build, at least not in the place I wanted to build, it's stuck and I have no way to undo it. The fact that you're making decisions permanent with regards to what you're constructing is really not a great experience and really something that needs some kind of undo button. Even if you lose the resources committed, even if it requires some other kind of expense or compromise, you have to give people an undo button because it's so frustrating when you otherwise construct a wrong item or a wrong thing to have it permanently in such a high investment activity such as like system building. Another issue is that you cannot really select the location of your initial port. I mean, this is annoying, but we can sort of kind of come to terms and come to live with it. But again, it would be really nice if we would be able to select the location of the initial port instead of it being completely random. Another issue related to the architect view is that after you start constructing something, but before it is completed, the slot associated with it remains open. So when I start constructing this asteroid base, the slot 1, which is where I actually selected it, sorry, the slot 0, which is where I actually selected it to be constructed, should be taken away from, just like it happens when a station is complete, the slot is taken away. But this doesn't happen. It only happens once the starbase is complete. And I dread the idea of somebody using the same slot to construct something else and what would happen, because that would create a very inconsistent state, which you really don't want. So this needs to be blocked after the station is in construction, not after the station is completed. So this is, again, a bug that needs to be sorted in the system architect view. Another bug is pertaining to the number of facilities. Now, if you look at this system, you will see that this system checks at 8 facilities constructed. And I think there's a way to actually see a more detailed count. Yeah, it's 4 space and 4 ground facilities, according to this count. However, I have 1, 2, let's not count the original space station for the sake of argument. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 space facilities, which have been fully constructed. So for whatever reason, 2 of my space facilities, I don't know because they're of the same type, like I have 2 satellites, or there's something else going on, but space facilities are not always counted correctly. On the flip side, ground facilities are. So the 4 ground facilities that I have constructed are counted correctly. So you need to review how the counting of space facilities works, because this counting is incorrect. This number should be 10, or if you count the initial station as well, 11. And I don't think it counts initial station. I don't think it counts it anyway. So yes, it doesn't count it anyway. So this number should be 10, not 8. And again, there's something wrong with how the space stations are counted. There are incorrect dependencies with regards to construction. So for example, a tourist outpost, well, I have to go to a planetary base, so I can't show you here. I'd have to be at a planet, but trust me, a tourist settlement requires a satellite as a prerequisite for construction. Now, you'd imagine that any of the 3 types of satellite satisfies that prerequisite. So you could build an Irene satellite, a Hermes satellite, or an Angaria satellite, and each one of the 3 would then let you build a tourist settlement. That is not true. The Irene settlement does not. The Irene settlement shows up as a scientific installation, and this does not let you build a tourist settlement. You need a Hermes satellite, which shows up as a comms installation, and the Hermes satellite will let you build a tourist settlement. So there are some, and I haven't tested everything, obviously, because it's impossible right now, but there are dependencies errors like this. There's one, chances are there may be more. So unless you're doing it for other reasons, I highly suggest you check the first type of installation in a box if you're building it for dependencies, because the other ones may not work, may or may not work. Again, something of a bug to fix as far as dependencies are concerned. The UI as a whole could you really use some overhaul? You cannot see the construction menus for planetary sites without actively being at a planet, which makes it really hard to plan or really hard to even see dependencies for planetary things, which often depend on space stations, and space stations which often depend on planetary bases, which then often depend on space installations. Like, for example, if you wanted to build a tier 2 tourist installation, this one, and it doesn't even show you because the requirement actually is met because I do have a tourist settlement here, requires a tourist settlement to be built. A tourist settlement, in turn, requires a satellite to be built. So it's very hard from here to see what you actually need to build to be able to build this. And you have to go to a planet, and then you need to figure out that you need a satellite, so you have to go back to space. This is extremely convoluted and hard to see. But the build point 2, and both tier 2 and tier 3 build point is also very convoluted and complicated and hard to understand. We're going to make an infographic that helps explain that, but again, it can really be visually simplified significantly, and maybe our infographic will be enough to help. We shall see. In addition, the slot numbering for ring systems is counterintuitive. So I was mentioning about this asteroid base. I wanted it in the icy ring, which is the outside ring, and I imagined that the rocky ring, the inside ring, like this thing has 2 rings, as you can see. Where are we? Here. The interior ring is rocky, the A ring is rocky, the B ring is icy. You'd imagine that slot 0 is the rocky ring, and slot 1 is the icy ring, because A, B, 0, 1. Except when I built my asteroid installation in slot 1, guess where it ended up? It ended up in the rocky ring. So that's counterintuitive. Like, there needs to be a way to kind of match the slots to the rings so that it is intuitive. Like, if you're trying to build an asteroid base, it shouldn't randomly be ending up in a rocky asteroid instead, especially since you have no way to preview it and no undo button at all. So you're permanently stuck. Finally, when it comes to the architect view, and this is more of a broader question and kind of observation, is, I think I have to click on this again after, for whatever reason, like sometimes you lose this thing. There is only one refinery installation, and it's a refinery hub that is available for planetary construction as a tier 2. Everything else is either extraction, like the asteroid base, or industry, or anything but refinery. Guess what is in the most demand right now everywhere? Steel, titanium, aluminum, CMMs. So where are all the refinery buildings, FDF? We need more refinery buildings than just a tier 2 hub. Anyway, that's it with regards to the system architect view. Moving on, the amount of hauling. My initial estimates of time required turn out to be majorly, as high as they were, turned out to be majorly understated. The minimum time to build, let me see if I have the screen here. If not, I think I kind of posted it somewhere else. The minimum time to build, and unfortunately not here. I think I have it in downloads. See if I can pull it up. Minimum time to build. Yes, I have it. So this is an updated version. Let me see if I can pull it up on screen. Downloads. This is an updated version of my chart. And this is also kind of understated, and we'll get into it in a moment. But it is closer to reality. This gives you an idea that to build a tier 3 space station, the minimum hours of hauling, assuming everything else works perfectly, resources are always available, and none of that is true, by the way, is 55 hours, which is an enormous amount, especially considering that given real-world limitation, that number is probably closer to double. It's probably closer to 100 hours. To build a tier 1 space installation, this chart minimum tells you that you need roughly 2 hours Commander Xarian, who has been doing this for the bridge to bring the XI into the Pleiades, his own estimate is that the number is closer to 7 hours of actual hauling work, just for Tier 1 installation. Now, on this one, to be candid, and again, to be balanced, they are very different points of view. Some commanders are diehard haulers, and they are loving it. They're saying this is great. We finally have something to work on. Operation Ida is living the dream. Everyone is just, everyone who is like a hardcore hauler is just loving it. Everybody else tends to be more on the fence. Like, folks, I think, are coming together and trying to do things as a group, and in some cases enjoying it, but in many cases are feeling really the burn of the grind. And many, many people are saying, I'll do this once and then I'll never do it again, because it's just not fun for me. You mentioned having 8,000 claims, which is great, but how many of those will fail? And we'll get into that in a moment, because people don't actually follow through with a grind of actually building what they realize is an extreme amount of hauling. We shall see. I mean, your data will tell us, the data in the game will tell us, but my feeling here is that either you implement one of the recommendations we're going to get into, or you should really reduce the amount of resources required, because right now the amount of time required is punishing. In terms of additional thoughts, there's the weekly credit review, which right now for everyone shows happiness at 0%, and the credit value is really abysmal. So the system I just showed you, which has actually 10 resources in the system, generates a meager 342K credits, which is a pittance. I think there's a bug of some kind here, or there's something else going on that we don't understand. Maybe it's the fact that it's the first week and happiness builds up over time. Maybe not. You guys need to tell us. But one thing it's clear: if you have 300,000 credits weekly for a 10 tier for a 10 system station, that is such a low amount. Come on, guys. It's really not a lot. Other minor items: system colonization ships will continue showing at their system of origin and clutter up the view. Not a major bug, but something to note. There should be a cleanup or garbage collection process for system colonization ships in the system they launch at. The population mechanics of how systems grow their population are deeply obscure. In terms of feature requests, everyone wants NPC paid haulers. Everyone. Or even just the ability to set market prices and use credits to boost the market prices, so we can encourage player characters to haul for others if they have the credits. Forcing us into this hauling only, you have no choice. If you want to colonize, you have to personally haul yourself or bring your own friends to haul with you, is highly limiting, and something that a lot of people would love to find some workarounds or alternatives to. That is probably the biggest feature request that I've personally gathered from the community. There's the ability to pin the resources needed, so that you don't have to manually go and check out the resources needed each time, which actually takes multiple clicks and multiple time. And then you have to click here, and then you have to go in with your phone and take an actual phone screenshot of this thing and check on the phone to actually figure out what are the things that you need when you go to the market. There's got to be a better system in terms of being able to pin those resources. Having also a warning on Tier 3 or Tier 2 station initial builds would be really helpful for new commanders who may not quite appreciate what they're getting themselves into by building anything bigger than an outpost. Something like, be aware of the resources required. Tier 2, Tier 3 stations are a significant lift and are generally done as a group, would go a long ways to avoiding people getting frustrated once they realize the amount of effort and what they've got themselves into. Also, having a warning when a commander initiates a claim on a station where the primary station is on a system where the primary station is more than 10,000 light seconds away from the main star would be helpful, because that also introduces significant logistical challenges, and commanders may not necessarily appreciate what they're getting themselves into when that happens. As a nice aside, it would be great to have the ability to name planets when they are entirely built, so potentially a good source of arcs, and to name systems when they are overall sufficiently built. And I think that would also be a good source of arcs that people would be more than willing to pay for. Some ideas to consider. Finally, in terms of not tested features, we have not been able to test the system discount. We did get to 10 systems, but as per what we were talking about earlier, the system didn't recognize us having 10 stations and only gave us credit for 8, and as a result, we didn't get a chance to get the discount to kick in, and we can't really tell you if it works and if it works as intended, and it's something that we can't comment on. In conclusion, thank you, Frontier Developments, for this release of Trailblazers. It has been good. Despite the criticism, some of it warranted, some of it maybe excessive, I'll give it that. I feel that this moves the game forward, and if you have a chance to listen and incorporate some of the input from the community, which we've tried our best to represent in this video, I feel you can really take it from good to great, and that would be awesome for us all. So thanks again. Glory to mankind, Commander Mechan, over and out.